Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, our story is from MWMN 19. Let's begin. Everyone in my city disappeared, and I am unable to leave. Part 3. I spent every waking moment preparing. Each decision I made was to save as much time as possible. I armed myself quite well, I think. A .50 caliber machine gun with thousands of rounds of ammunition. I didn't know how to operate it. Then the internet connection I had came to my aid once again. After fiddling around with it, I managed to make it work. The car I tested it on is Swiss cheese, to say the least. I decided to make my stand in the stadium. The floodlights on it made it so that I had maximum visibility in the night. And since I planned to make my stand in the center of the stadium, I had a 360-degree shooting angle. In the center of the position was the military truck I found. On its back was the .50 caliber gun. I managed to connect most all the boxes of ammunition into one singular belt, so I didn't have to reload. Overheating is an issue which plagued me though. If I used water, it could make the barrel brittle, easier to break, and that was not an option. As for the barricades around me, I used at least 30 cars. Thankfully, the nearby parking lot was full, so I didn't make a long trip every time, though it was time-consuming. Some cars are much harder to break into, some are easier. I also managed to find a lot of flammable things around. I spread them around the perimeter in front of the cars. I managed to get my hands on a lot of canisters which I filled up. When the time comes, I will pour it around and set it on fire, as to have an additional barrier. In case of some of them coming too close, I do have an automatic rifle and a pistol on me. But I also strapped a hunting knife to my belt, and a machete which I sharpened as much as I possibly could for close quarter combat. Armor-wise, I still had the riot gear, but I managed to upgrade it. I strapped relatively thick steel plates onto the helmet, as well as putting one on my Kevlar vest as an additional barrier. I didn't want to be too heavy, though I didn't plan on moving much. In case I needed to escape, I could ditch the armor and sprint towards one of the escape points I made. There are multiple smaller entrances in the stadium, most of which I barricaded. But I left a few of them open enough so I could push through. I prepared a car on each exit so I can quickly escape. All of them are unlocked and I have the key to the ignitions. And I made a second base I could retreat to, a small house in which I could hold for a time. I had stashed most of my food in the basement there. The rest, I'll see. For other equipment, I prepared grenades and made some Molotov cocktails for good measure. I'm surprised I could do as much work in this small period of time. That's in spite of the injuries I sustained. They weren't as bad as I thought, thankfully. The ankle I broke somehow healed itself very quickly. Luck? I don't know. And if you're curious why I chose the stadium of all places, the local nickname for it is the Arena. Kill me. I couldn't hold back. The day finally came. It was only a few minutes before midnight. I loaded the .50 cal, shot a few test rounds, checked my other equipment. The defenses were ready, Floodlights on. I was ready. Okay, where are you, faceless? You said we'd be seeing each other today. I shouted, my voice reverberating throughout the empty stadium. Then behind me, I heard clapping once again. You have prepared, and you exceeded my expectations once again. Instead of a booming voice, I heard a normal voice with a British accent. I turned around quickly and aimed the large barrel at him. Don't waste your bullets. I will make this more of a challenge tonight. What do you say? He said. If he had a face, I swear he would have a massive grin plastered on it. I'm ready. Let the night begin then. Good luck. He tipped his hat, turned around, and disappeared. As in the previous nights, shrieking came from the distance. I lit a Molotov cocktail and threw it on the perimeter of my defense, lighting a ring of fire around me and the cars. I heard what sounded like thousands coming to the stadium. They started flooding from the entrances on the stands and the main entrances of the field, where the two opposing teams would exit if there was a match. I unleashed the monster I had found. Turning the gun on the largest groups, I tore them apart. I heard the brass castings hitting the bed of the truck non-stop. The monsters were much more numerous and diverse tonight. Dog-like creatures, long-armed tall boys, as I called them. Monsters who were human-like, but had multiple limbs. If I were to describe all of them, it would take hours to write. The fire barrier proved to be useful. Some didn't dare enter it. Others blindly charged and set themselves on fire, only to be mowed down by me. This chaos unfolded in the course of the first hour and a half. I found myself a wristwatch with a timer, so I knew exactly how much time there was to sunrise. As I methodically mowed them down, I saw multiple winged creatures descending into the stadium. I managed to get a couple of them, but after unsuccessfully attempting to grab me with their claws, they went for the floodlights. Clever bastards, I said in frustration as the lights went out one by one. Then came the point where the only light was the ring of fire. And it was slowly being snuffed out because of the amount of bodies piling up. The muzzle flashes on the gun were blinding. We'll fight in the shade then. As I started firing in all directions, lighting up the stadium like lightning, the muzzle flash giving me a brief look of the stadium every time I released a bullet. The moonless night continued. Each creature I slayed took another in its place. Then it was silent. There were only stragglers here and there. 3 hours left. What are you planning, goddammit? There were only a few whimpers, creatures buried and wounded underneath the piles of their others. Then a familiar roar broke that silence. The demonic roar sent chills down my spine. I couldn't see anything in the darkness. I couldn't discern from which direction it was coming. I thought I had a foolproof plan, but it looks like I didn't bring any flares. Before I could do anything, a blunt object hit me, a large object. It sent me flying into the corpses. I shouted in pain. I managed to quickly get up. Even though I couldn't see, I could hear the heavy footsteps. I evaded them as best I could. The creature swung its weapon at me, but it didn't connect. Its vision was also limited. Night vision would be quite useful in this situation, but I didn't find goggles anywhere, not even at the military base. I managed to get to the truck, blindly extended my hand, feeling the steel-hot mountain of brass. On the other side was a bottle. This is risky, but screw it. I lit the gauze protruding out of the bottle and threw it in the general direction of the corpses. The flame quickly spread through the circle of bodies, illuminating the immediate surroundings. The putrid stench of burning corpses followed suit, but I had to keep the bile from rising in my throat. I had more pressing concerns. I finally took a look at the thing that hit me. A hulking beast. In its right hand, a massive blunt object, the likes of which a caveman would wield. Its right hand was little more than a stump. I knew what this was, who it was, but the most concerning things were: one, the creature had thick plates of armor and a goddamn gladiator helmet. I'm sure that this was the doing of Faceless. He took the nickname Arena seriously and made this bastardization of a warrior. 2. The 50 cal thrown alongside myself was far away. It looked like it was still operational, but it wasn't connected to the belt of bullets. And I had no time to pick it up and reconnect it. I had to think on my feet. The beast was quickly approaching now that it could clearly see. I grabbed the machete and ran. The beast was slow. It gave a few blows but missed every time. The problem was it turned quite quickly. I couldn't get behind it. And the armor on me was just exhausting. It might have been more than necessary, but I couldn't ditch it just yet. I took a gamble and ran directly towards the beast at full sprint. The beast roared as it raised its massive club, ready to crush me to death. But as I was only a few meters away, I dropped and slid under its legs. I was behind it. The beast let out an audible deep as I slashed one of its ankles. Then a deep growl of pain was let out as it fell to one knee. It quickly swung its club behind. This time I couldn't evade the attack and it launched me towards the corpses again. I landed on the burning pile. I was on fire. I quickly jumped off and extinguished any flames on me. The precious seconds I used to extinguish were used by the beast to slowly come towards me. It barely walked, not able to walk on its one leg now. I tried to run, but the exhaustion and most likely broken bones didn't allow me. It came and raised its club once again. I got my hunting knife out and stabbed it as hard as I could in its other leg. I found out its skin was not as thick on its legs. The knife dug deep, and once again it growled in pain. This time dropping its club to the floor to grab its new wound. I managed to crawl beneath it, and I climbed on its back. The neck was exposed just slightly, enough for my knife to go through. Though its skin was thick here, after using all my strength, I managed to stab it. It tried to grab me, swinging wildly in its attempt, but I held firm. After I stabbed it once more, it finally managed to grab me and throw me at the truck. Adrenaline didn't let me stay on the floor too long. I got up, whilst grabbing the door of the truck to help myself. Then through the window, I saw something that I had forgotten. An unopened box of bullets. I opened the driver's side door and grabbed the box, exiting through the other door. I made my way back towards the 50 cal laying on the floor. I looked back and saw the beast was just now getting up. The thing was able to stand somehow. I quickly put the box beside the gun and connected the belt of bullets inside. I cocked it. It was much harder, and the weight of the gun was so much that I could barely hold it. The rifle and pistol would do nothing, but this ought to bring it down. I trudged towards the creature, lifted up my now bloodied visor of the riot helmet, and shouted, Have a taste of an M2 Browning, you oversized ape. Then I pressed down on the trigger. The beast turned its head, but was met with a hail of bullets. Most of them ricocheted off the metal plating and thick helmet, but I lowered the weapon to aim at its legs, shredding them. The beast roared in pain as it collapsed onto the floor. I ceased fire when it did. The beast was on its back, panting heavily. It probably had no strength left. I climbed on top of its chest. I tried to raise its arms but wasn't able to. I freed up one of my hands and somehow managed to remove its extremely heavy helmet. It revealed small black eyes and that damned smile. It still had that goddamned smile. I lowered my visor and aimed the gun directly at its face. Die already, worthless bastard, I said as I opened fire. I kept shooting until there were no bullets left. It left nothing but a pool of blood. I jumped off the creature and threw the gun away. I collapsed onto my knees in exhaustion. While panting heavily, I exclaimed, "Are you entertained?" I removed my helmet and looked into the dark sky, seeing the pieces of ash from the still raging fire around me. "Are you entertained?" Then I lowered my head and took a look at my watch. 30 minutes left. How long did I fight that thing? Then a familiar figure appeared before me, clad in a black suit, black top hat, and a head without any features. "Magnificent," Faceless said as he stretched his arms out. "Is it over?" I said quietly. "Indeed, it is. I don't know what else to throw at you. Say, would you like a reward?" Faceless said as he leaned towards me, centimeters away from my face. I looked up at him. "I'm not your dog." "Whoever said that you were my dog? Don't be silly. Well, as the one who brought you here, I am obligated to answer the questions I couldn't before," he said as he got out of my face. He crossed his arms, cleared his throat, as if he had one, then began. "So you see, I have mentioned last time that you are not the only one. I will now elaborate. There are others like you, stuck in the same game of survival. Each has it slightly different. See, I tailor each experience to the player, to their personality, tastes foremost, then their sins." He said the last in a much deeper and more serious tone. "You are not the only one surviving in the city. Well, you are. I mean in the sense that it's the same city, different dimension. Understand?" He paused, expecting a response, but I had nothing. To be honest, I didn't have the strength to vocalize. Well, let me continue. I observed a few hundred of you, and only a select few of you are up to the task for Judgment Day. I raised my hand as he said that. My curiosity was piqued in spite of me being barely alive at this point. "Ah, that's the spirit. Anyways, Judgment Day is not something you can do alone, you see. This here, what you've experienced today, is nothing. Little ants that I created out of boredom. Husks of human souls that were damned to the abyss and are free to be manipulated into whatever I want. The real trial
is about to begin,"
he said in an excited tone. What did you do to them?" I barely said.
"What? Oh, you mean these?"
He pointed at the still raging flames of corpses.
"As I've said, they are my playthings, unless you think you have somehow saved them. Sorry to break it to you, but they are back in the abyss. Anyways, I think you are ready for the transition. Good luck to you, and wish the others the best of luck once more, from me,"
he said as he raised his hand to snap his fingers. "Others?" I asked. Before I could react, he snapped his fingers, and I accelerated forward at incredible speed, phasing through all objects. I found myself in an unfamiliar room. In front of me were 3 others. They seemed to be chatting. They were all battered, but not nearly as much as me. They turned to me, saying something, but I couldn't hear them. It was as if I was underwater. Then my vision faded, and all went to black. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read and slightly altered with the author's permission. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit post. Don't let the shadows get too close.